The cell was cold, as it always was. Ho sat on the metal floor with his back against the wall. He had stopped counting the days long ago. 3 years, maybe more. Time moved differently on an alien ship that never saw sunrise or sunset. He was Subject 7 now. That was the name they gave him. Not Ho, not human, not even prisoner, just a number, a thing to be studied. There were tall creatures with skin that glowed softly in the dark. Their eyes were large and black, like pools of ink. They walked with pride in every step. They had conquered many worlds, and they looked at humans the way humans might look at insects, curious but not impressed. Ho remembered his old life sometimes. He had been a scientist on Earth. He studied alien life forms. The irony was not lost on him. Now he was the one being studied. The researchers came every few days. They took his blood. They measured his body. They asked him questions in their clicking language. Ho had learned to speak it over time. He had nothing else to do but learn. Learning kept his mind alive when everything else was dying. Tonight was different. The lights in the corridor flickered. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed against the walls. Ho pressed himself into the corner of his cell. In 3 years, he had never heard alarms like this. Guards ran past his cell. Their heavy boots made the floor shake. They were shouting in rapid, too fast for Ho to understand fully, but he caught some words. Breach, chamber, royal. The royal spawning chamber. Even Ho knew what that was. It was the most sacred place on the entire ship. It was where the queen's offspring were born. No one except the highest priests could enter. Something had gone very wrong. More guards ran past. Then there was silence. The alarms kept flashing, but no more footsteps came. Ho noticed something strange. His cell door had shifted, just a little. The power surge must have affected the locks. He could push it open. His heart beat fast. For a moment he thought about running, but where would he go? This ship was vast. He did not know the layout. He would be caught within minutes, and then they would hurt him. They had hurt him before when he first arrived and tried to fight back. He still had the scars. No, running was foolish. But something pulled at him. Call it curiosity. Call it fate. Ho slowly pushed the door open and stepped into the corridor. The air smelled wrong. There was a strange sweetness to it, like flowers mixed with something metallic. He followed the smell without thinking. His feet carried him toward the source of the chaos. The corridor opened into a wider passage. The walls here were decorated with golden symbols. This was the royal section. Ho had never been here before. He should turn back. He kept walking. Then he saw it. A small pod lay cracked open on the floor. It was made of some kind of organic material, like a giant egg. Fluid leaked from the cracks and spread across the cold metal ground. And inside the broken pod, there was movement. Ho stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a baby, smaller than he expected, about the size of a human newborn. Her skin was pale lavender and it flickered with weak light. Her tiny hands opened and closed, reaching for something that was not there. She was dying. Ho knew this because he had studied biology. It was part of his research before the war. Infants needed immediate warmth after hatching. Their bodies could not regulate temperature on their own. They required skin contact with a parent within minutes, or their systems would fail. He looked around. The corridor was empty. Where were the guards? Where were the priests? Where was the queen? The baby made a small sound. It was not quite a cry, more like a soft whistle of air escaping. Her light flickered weaker. Ho knelt down. He did not know what he was doing. His hands moved on their own. He lifted the tiny creature from the broken pod. She was wet and cold against his palms. He held her against his chest. Human body temperature was slightly higher than. He remembered this fact from his research. Humans ran warm. It was one of the things they found strange about his species. The baby pressed against his shirt. Her small body trembled. Ho wrapped his arms around her and held her close. He could feel her heartbeat. It was fast like a bird's. "Come on," he whispered, "come on." The flickering light on her skin slowed. Then it steadied. It grew a little brighter. She was warming up. Ho let out a breath he did not know he was holding. The baby moved against him, pressing closer to his warmth. Her tiny hand gripped his shirt. He stood there in the golden corridor, holding an alien princess, and he did not move. That was how they found him. The guards came first, 6 of them with weapons drawn. They stopped when they saw him. Their black eyes went wide with shock. Then came the priests in their long robes. They made sounds of horror and disbelief. Finally she arrived. Queen was taller than the others. Her skin glowed with deep blue light and her eyes were the color of cold stars. She moved without hurry. The crowd parted for her like water. She looked at Ho. She looked at the baby in his arms. For a long moment, no one spoke. The oldest priest stepped forward. His voice trembled when he spoke. "My queen," he said, "the human, he has given the first warmth." The queen's face did not change, but something shifted in her eyes, something that might have been fear. "The imprint," she said quietly. "Yes, my queen, the bond has formed. The child has claimed him as her life-giver." The guards raised their weapons. Ho knew he should be afraid, but the baby was still holding his shirt. She made another small sound, almost like a sigh of comfort. "Kill him," one of the commanders said. "Kill him now before the corruption spreads." The queen raised her hand. Everyone fell silent. She walked toward Ho until she stood directly in front of him. Up close, she was terrifying. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. "If we kill him," she said slowly, "the child dies with him. That is the law of the imprint." The court said nothing. Queen looked at her daughter. The baby had turned her small head toward her mother's voice, but her hand still held onto Ho. "The human lives," the queen said, "for now." She turned and walked away. The crowd parted again. Ho stood alone in the corridor, holding a princess, surrounded by creatures who wanted him dead. And he understood in that moment that his life would never be the same. The night after Ho saved the princess, no one came for him. He sat in a new room, larger than his old cell but still locked. The baby was taken from his arms by the priests, and he thought he would never see her again. He was wrong. Before sunrise, if there had been a sun, the door opened. 2 guards stood outside. They did not speak to him. They just pointed down the corridor and waited. Ho followed. They walked through parts of the ship he had never seen. The walls grew more decorated. The floors became smoother. The air smelled cleaner. He was entering the heart of power. They stopped at a large door covered in golden symbols. The guards pressed their hands against a panel, and the door slid open. Inside was a room filled with soft light. There were plants growing in glass containers. The furniture was curved and organic, grown rather than built. And in the center of the room, in a floating cradle, was the baby. Queen stood beside the cradle. She did not look at Ho when he entered. "Leave us," she said to the guards. The door closed. Ho was alone with the ruler of an empire. "Come closer," the queen said. He obeyed. He had learned that obedience kept him alive. The baby was awake. Her large eyes tracked movement around the room. When Ho came near, something changed. Her skin began to glow brighter. Her small arms reached upward. Toward him. The queen watched this happen. Her face was like stone. "She does not reach for me," she said. "I am her mother, I am her blood, but she reaches for you." Ho did not know what to say. He stayed silent. "The imprint is an ancient thing," the queen continued. "It comes from a time before our civilization, when we were weak creatures on a harsh world. The first warmth created a bond between parent and child. It ensured that no infant would be abandoned. It was sacred." She finally looked at Ho. Her eyes were cold and sharp. It was never meant for your kind." "I didn't know," Ho said quietly. "I only wanted to help her. She was dying." "Yes, and now she is bound to you. Her body recognizes you as her life giver. Her development will follow your patterns. If you die, she will feel it. It may kill her. If you are hurt, she will suffer." The weight of her words pressed down on Ho like a physical force. "The court wants you dead," the queen said. "High Commander has already called for your execution twice. He says you have corrupted the royal bloodline. Many agree with him." "And what do you say?" Ho asked. The words came out before he could stop them. The queen's eyes narrowed. For a moment he thought she would strike him. "I say that I have waited 200 years for a living heir," she said. 200 years of failed spawnings, dead infants, empty pods, and now, finally, a daughter who breathes, who lives. She turned back to the cradle. "I will not lose her because of ancient laws or court politics. I will not lose her because a human was in the wrong place at the wrong time." She reached down and touched the baby's face. The infant turned toward her touch, but her glow remained dim. When Ho moved even slightly, the glow brightened. The queen pulled her hand back. "You will stay near her," she said. "You will help her grow. You will teach her nothing of your human ways. You will speak to no one of your position. And you will never, ever forget that your life depends entirely on her survival." Ho nodded slowly. "Does she have a name?" he asked. The queen was silent for a long time. She said finally, "Her name is—" The following weeks were strange and difficult. Ho was given a small room connected to the royal nursery. He could not leave without guards. He could not speak to other humans. He existed in a space between prisoner and something else, something that had no name, but needed him. Every few hours she would cry out in her strange whistling way. The nurses would try to comfort her. They would hold her, sing to her, rock her in their arms. Nothing worked. Only when Ho held her did she calm down. He learned to feed her the special formula they used. He learned to clean her delicate skin with soft claws. He learned the sound she made when she was hungry, tired, or uncomfortable. He was becoming a father, not by choice, not by blood, but by something deeper. The old priest visited sometimes. He would stand in the doorway and watch Ho care for the princess. His ancient face showed no emotion. "You know what this means," said one day. "The imprint is not just physical. It shapes the soul. She will learn from you. She will absorb your nature. Your thoughts will become her thoughts. Your values will become her values." "I don't want to change her," Ho said. "I just want her to live." "What you want does not matter," replied. "The bond does not care about your intentions. It only cares about connection." He left without another word. High Commander was different. He did not visit quietly. He came with loud footsteps and angry eyes. He would stand at the edge of the nursery and stare at Ho with pure hatred. "You think you are safe," said once. "You think the queen's protection will last forever, but she is practical. When the princess is old enough to survive without you, your usefulness ends." Ho did not respond. "And I will be waiting," continued. "I will be there when your time runs out, and I will personally make sure you suffer for what you have done to our people." He left, and Ho held a little. Weeks turned into months, grew faster than anyone expected. Her body was changing in ways that confused the scientists. Her skin tone shifted slightly. Her eyes developed new colors at the edges. Her movements became more animated, more expressive. Dr. Jin was brought to examine Ho. She was another human prisoner, a physician captured in the same war. She had aged since Ho last saw her. There were lines on her face that were not there before. "They want to make sure you're healthy," she said while checking his vital signs. "Healthy host, healthy bond." "How are the others?" Ho asked quietly. "The other humans?" Jin's face darkened. "Some are still alive, some are not. We survive as best we can." She finished her examination and then looked at who was sleeping in her cradle. She's remarkable, Jin whispered. I've studied her readings. Her cellular structure is adapting. She's incorporating human proteins into her biology. The bond isn't just emotional, Ho. It's changing her on a genetic level. What does that mean? It means she's becoming something new, something that has never existed before. Jin paused. She's becoming part human. Ho looked at the sleeping princess. Her small chest rose and fell with each breath. Her hand still reached toward him even in sleep. Is that dangerous? He asked. I don't know, Jin admitted. But I know this. They do not like change. When they find out what she is becoming, they will be afraid. And afraid people do terrible things. She gathered her equipment and left. That night Ho sat beside the cradle and watched sleep. She glowed softly in the darkness, a small light in the vast cold ship. I don't know what you're becoming, he whispered to her, but I promise I will protect you, whatever it takes. His hand closed around his finger. And in that moment Ho stopped being a prisoner. He became a father. 1 year passed on the great ship. Ho marked the time by his growth. She was no longer an infant. She could walk now, though she stumbled often. She could speak, though her words were simple. And she followed Ho everywhere like a small shadow made of pale purple light. The court had grown used to the strange sight. The human and the princess always together. Guards still watched them constantly. Priests still whispered in corners, but no one tried to separate them anymore. The queen had made her decision, and no one dared challenge it openly. Ho's quarters had improved. He had a real bed now with soft blankets. He had books, translated into his language by the ship systems. He had a window that showed the stars outside. It was almost comfortable. But he was still a prisoner. The door still locked from the outside. Guards still stood in the hallway. He could not leave the royal section without permission, and permission was never given. Did not understand any of this. She only knew that Ho was her father, and she loved him. She called him, it was the word for father, she said it 100 times a day. Look at this. What is that? Hold me. Tell me a story. Ho had started telling her stories. At first, he told her stories. The ship's library had many tales of ancient heroes and great conquests, stories of strength and power and domination. These were the stories children were supposed to hear, but did not like them. Why do they always fight? She asked one night. Why does someone always have to lose? Ho thought about this question. In culture, the answer was obvious. The strong conquered the weak. That was the natural order. That was how the empire grew. But he was not. Where I come from, he said carefully, we have different stories. Stories where people work together. Stories where nobody has to lose. His eyes went wide. Tell me those stories. So he did. He told her about heroes who saved people instead of conquering them. He told her about friendships between unlikely partners. He told her about families who stayed together through hard times. He told her about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests and golden sunlight. These were dangerous stories. If the court knew what he was teaching her, they would be furious, but loved them. She asked for them every night, and Ho could not refuse her. The changes in became more visible as she grew. Other children her age were quiet and serious. They spoke only when spoken to. They obeyed every command without question. They never laughed. Laughed all the time. The first time it happened, the nurses were terrified. They thought something was wrong with her. Did not laugh. It was not part of their nature. They showed satisfaction, yes. They showed triumph. But laughter, the pure joy of finding something funny, was unknown to them. Laughed at Ho's funny faces. She laughed when she chased small cleaning robots around the room. She laughed when she jumped in puddles of water that had spilled on the floor. The sound filled the quiet halls of the royal section like music. Queen heard the laughter one day. She came to the nursery and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter chase a floating toy around the room, was making sounds of pure delight. What is wrong with her? The queen asked. Nothing is wrong, Ho said. She is happy. Happy, the queen repeated, as if the word was foreign. Do not express happiness this way. Maybe she is expressing it a different way, a human way. The queen's face hardened. She left without speaking. But she did not forbid the laughter, and that was something. High Commander watched everything with growing anger. He came to the nursery more often now, always finding excuses, inspecting security, checking procedures, asking questions. She asks too many questions, he told the queen one day in the council chamber. Ho was not supposed to hear, but he had learned to listen through the walls. Why does the star burn? Why do ships fly? Why do we conquer? These are not proper questions for a royal child. Children ask questions, the queen replied. It is natural. Not like this. Children accept knowledge. They do not challenge it. She is being corrupted by the human. His weakness is spreading to her. Curiosity is not weakness, Commander. It is the beginning of weakness. Today she asks why. Tomorrow she asks why not. And then she questions the very foundation of our empire. The queen was silent for a long moment. Watch her, she finally said. Watch them both. Report anything concerning directly to me. Bowden left satisfied. Ho knew he was being watched more closely now. He was more careful with his stories. He spoke quietly. He made sure no one was near when he answered endless questions. But he did not stop teaching her. Dr. Jin visited every month to check on them. Each visit, she brought new information about development. Her brain patterns are unusual, Jin reported. She has structures that normal do not have, areas associated with empathy, social bonding, creative thinking. These are human traits, Ho. She is developing them because of the bond. Is it hurting her? No, if anything, she is healthier than any child on record, stronger, more adaptive. The hybrid traits are not replacing her nature, they are adding to it. Ho processed this information, so she is becoming something better. She is becoming something different. Better or worse depends on who is judging. Jin lowered her voice. The resistance has heard about her. Captain Sung wanted me to tell you that you are not forgotten. There are humans still fighting for freedom. They are planning something big. I cannot leave her, Ho said immediately. I know, Sung knows too. He says that what you are doing might be more important than any rescue. If you can change the princess, you might change the empire. That would save more humans than any battle. She left, and Ho thought about her words for a long time. That night could not sleep. She climbed onto Ho's bed and curled up next to him, as she often did. She said quietly, "Why do the other children not like me?" Ho felt his heart tighten. What do you mean? In the teaching hall, they look at me strangely. They do not play with me. They whisper when I walk past. He pulled her closer. You are different from them. Different can be scary. But I do not want to be scary. I want to have friends. You have me, Ho said. I am your friend. You are that is more than friend. She was quiet for a while. Then she asked another question. Am I wrong? Am I broken? Ho held her. His eyes burned with tears he would not let fall. No, he said firmly. You are not wrong. You are not broken. You are special. Different does not mean bad. Different means unique. And unique is beautiful. The priests say I am corrupted. They say the imprint damaged me. The priests do not know everything. They see something new and they are afraid. But being new is not the same as being bad. Do you understand? Nodded slowly. I think so. Remember this, little one. The people who call you wrong are the ones who cannot understand you. And that is their problem, not yours. You are exactly who you are supposed to be. She smiled then, her skin glowing warm gold, a human smile on an alien face. I love you. I love you too, always. She fell asleep in his arms, and Ho stayed awake long into the night, watching the stars through the window and wondering what kind of future awaited his strange, beautiful daughter. 3 years had passed since the night Ho found in that broken pod. She was no longer a small child. She had grown tall and graceful, moving with a mix of elegance and something else, something more alive. The court had accepted a new rhythm. The princess and her human guardian were part of daily life now. Strange, yes. Uncomfortable, certainly, but unavoidable. Ho had changed too. He was stronger than before. They had given him better food, better care. They needed him healthy. A sick guardian meant a sick princess, so they kept him alive even if they did not respect him. He still taught in secret. Korean words whispered when no one was listening. Human songs hummed quietly at bedtime. Stories of Earth told in the dark hours. She absorbed everything like water soaking into dry ground. And she questioned everything. "Why do we conquer?" she asked her tutors. "Because the strong rule the weak," they answered. "But what if we help them instead? Would they not be grateful? Would they not work with us willingly?" The tutors did not know how to respond. These questions were not in their lessons. They reported to the queen, who listened with growing concern. "She thinks like a human," said at the council meeting. "She speaks of cooperation, of helping the weak. These are primitive ideas, they weaken our children." "She is intelligent," Queen replied. "She sees possibilities others do not. She sees foolishness, and it will destroy her." The queen did not argue further, but she did not punish either. The ceremony came on the anniversary of Naming Day. All royal children participated in a ritual called the First Blood. It was a tradition thousands of years old. Each child was given a small creature captured from a conquered world. They were expected to kill it, proving their strength and their willingness to dominate. Ho knew about the ceremony. He had tried to prepare for it, but no amount of preparation could change who she had become. The great hall was filled with nobles and priests. Children stood in a line, each holding a cage with a trembling creature inside. Some creatures were furry, some had scales, all were terrified. Stood at the end of the line, holding her cage. Inside was a small animal with soft gray fur and large, frightened eyes. It pressed itself against the back of the cage, shaking. One by one, the children killed their creatures. Some used quick strikes, some used slow pressure. The crowd watched with approval. This was how warriors were made. This was how strength was proven. His turn came. She walked to the center of the hall and knelt beside her cage. The creature inside whimpered. The crowd waited. She opened the cage. The animal did not run. It was too scared. It just sat there trembling, waiting for death. Reached inside. The crowd held its breath. She pulled the creature out gently and cradled it against her chest. Her skin glowed warm gold as she held it close. "It is scared," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "It is scared like I was when I was small. Father says scared things need help, not hurt." The hall erupted. Nobles shouted in anger. Priests made gestures of horror. Children pointed and laughed. Only the queen sat motionless on her throne, her face unreadable. Pushed through the crowd, his face was twisted with rage. "This is corruption," he roared. "This is the human's poison in her blood. She cannot even perform the most basic ritual. She is unfit to rule. She is unfit to live." The guards moved toward. She stood her ground, still holding the small creature against her heart. "Stop!" The queen's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Everyone froze. Queen stood from her throne and walked down the steps. Her long robes trailed behind her like shadows. She approached her daughter and looked down at her with those cold, star-colored eyes. "Why did you not kill it?" she asked. Looked up at her mother without fear. "Because killing it would not make me strong," she said. "It would only make me cruel. Father says true strength is protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Your father is a human, a prisoner. His opinions mean nothing. His opinions made me who I am." The silence that followed was absolute. No one had ever spoken to the queen like this. No child had ever her will so openly. Queen turned to look at the crowd, at her nobles, at her priests, at who was practically shaking with fury. "Bring the human," she said. 2 guards left and returned with Ho. They pushed him to his knees in front of the queen. He did not resist. He had learned long ago that resistance only brought pain. But when saw him forced down, she moved. She put herself between her father and the queen, the small creature still held against her chest. "Do not hurt him," she said. "You would protect him against me." "I would protect anyone who needs protecting. That is what he taught me. That is what makes me different from the others." Queen looked at her daughter for a long moment. Then she looked at Ho, who was watching the scene with fear and pride mixed in his eyes. "Stand up, human," the queen commanded. Ho stood slowly. "Explain," she said. "Explain why your species values weakness." The crowd stirred. This was unexpected. The queen was giving the human a chance to speak. It was unprecedented. Ho took a deep breath. He knew that his next words would decide everything. His life, maybe even the future of both their species. "What you call weakness," he began, "we call compassion. What you call foolishness, we call cooperation." He looked around the hall at the proud faces watching him. "Your empire is built on conquest. You defeat enemies. You take worlds. You rule through fear. And yes, that has made you powerful. But power through fear requires constant vigilance. Your conquered people do not serve you because they want to. They serve you because they must. The moment you show weakness, they will turn on you." Stepped forward. "Is this supposed to convince us? A lecture from a prisoner?" "Let him finish," the queen said. Ho continued. "Humans are not as strong as we are smaller. We live shorter lives. We do not have your technology or your ships or your weapons, but we have survived. We have thrived. Do you know why?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. "Because we learned to trust each other. We learned that helping the weak made everyone stronger. We learned that mercy created loyalty. We learned that kindness built bonds that fear never could." He looked at who was watching him with shining eyes. "Your daughter does not have a defect. She has a gift. She can inspire loyalty that no amount of fear could achieve. She can build alliances instead of conquests. She can be a different kind of ruler, a better kind." Laughed bitterly. "A human telling us how to rule. This is madness." "Is it?" Ho asked. "How many of your conquered worlds would fight for you? Not because they fear you, but because they believe in you. How many would stand beside you if a greater enemy came?" The question struck home. Ho could see it in the faces of the nobles. They knew the answer. Their empire was vast but fragile. Their subjects obeyed but did not love them. Queen was silent for a long time. The entire court waited for her judgment. Finally, she turned to her daughter. "Release the creature," she said. Opened her hands. The small furry animal looked around in confusion, then ran toward a corner of the hall. It was alive. It was free. The queen looked at Ho. "You will teach me," she said quietly so only he could hear. "What you have taught her, you will teach me." She turned and walked back to her throne. "The ceremony is concluded," she announced. "The princess has shown an unexpected kind of strength. Let us consider what we have witnessed today." She sat down and the court slowly dispersed, buzzing with confused whispers. Ho walked to and put his hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Did I do the right thing?" He pulled her into a hug, not caring who watched. "Yes," he whispered, "you did exactly the right thing." And somewhere in the watching crowd, Captain Sung's spy witnessed everything and began planning to send the most important message of his life. The days following the ceremony were tense. The court was divided. Half the nobles called for Ho's execution. The other half whispered that perhaps, just perhaps, the princess had shown something worth considering. Queen called for a formal council. All the major houses would attend. All the high priests, all the military commanders. The topic was simple: what to do with the human and his influence on the air. Ho was brought to the great council chamber in chains, not because anyone thought he would fight. The chains were a message. They wanted to remind everyone that he was still a prisoner, still property, still nothing. But walked beside him without chains. She had refused to be separated from him. When the guards tried to keep her away, her skin had flared so bright that they stepped back in fear. The bond was stronger than any physical restraint. The council chamber was enormous. Rows of seats rose in circles around a central platform. Hundreds of nobles filled those seats, their glowing skin making the room shimmer with soft light. At the far end, Queen sat on a high throne, watching everything with her cold, patient eyes. High Commander stood on the central platform, ready to make his argument. "We have gathered to address a crisis," he began. "Our princess, heir to the greatest empire in the galaxy, has been corrupted. Her mind has been poisoned by human ideas. She shows mercy when she should show strength. She asks questions when she should accept. She has failed the most basic test of nature." He pointed at Ho. "This creature is responsible. He has used the imprint to twist our princess into something unnatural, something dangerous. If she takes the throne, she will destroy everything we have built. She will turn our empire into a gathering of weaklings." Many nobles nodded in agreement. Some called out support. Continued, "I propose 2 solutions. First, the human must be executed immediately. His influence must end. Second, the princess must undergo purification. The priests have methods to cleanse unwanted traits from a mind. She will suffer, yes. She may lose some memories, but she will emerge pure. She will emerge." Elder priest stepped forward. "The purification ritual is ancient and proven. It has been used on defective offspring before. The success rate is acceptable." "And what is the failure rate?" Queen asked quietly. Hesitated. "Approximately 30% do not survive the process. Another 20% suffer permanent damage to their minds. So half of those who undergo this purification are destroyed or broken," the Queen said. "And you propose this for my only surviving heir." "Better a damaged heir than a corrupted one," said. "Better no heir than a traitor to our species." The chamber buzzed with reaction. Some agreed loudly, others looked uncomfortable. Queen raised her hand for silence, then she looked at Ho. "Human," she said, "you have heard the charges against you. You have heard what we propose to do. Do you wish to speak in your defense?" Ho looked at the hundreds of hostile faces surrounding him. He looked at, who was watching him with trust and fear in her eyes. He looked at the Queen, who waited with an expression he could not read. He stepped forward as far as his chains allowed. "I did not ask for this bond," he began. His voice was calm, clear, surprisingly steady. "I did not plan to become a father to your princess. I was a prisoner waiting to die. And then I found a dying child and I did what any decent being would do. I helped her." He let those words sink in. "You call that corruption. You say I have poisoned her mind. But let me tell you what I really did. I taught her to think. I taught her to question. I taught her that strength is not about hurting others. It is about having the power to hurt and choosing not to." Laughed, "Human philosophy, worthless ideas from a worthless species." "Worthless?" Ho turned to face him directly. "Let me tell you about my worthless species. We are small. We are weak. We live on a single planet at the edge of your territory. We should have been easy to conquer." He looked around the chamber. "And yet your war against us has lasted 7 years. 7 years against a species you call worthless. Your armies have taken our cities, yes. Your ships control our skis, but you have not broken us. Do you know why?" No one answered. "Because we fight for each other, not for power, not for glory, for each other. When one human falls, another steps forward. When one city burns, another rises. We lose battles, but we never stop fighting, because we believe in something worth fighting for." He pointed at the nobles watching him. How many of your conquered worlds would do the same for you? If a greater power came and threatened your empire, how many of your subjects would stand beside you? Or would they watch you fall and be glad? The chamber was silent. You rule through fear, Ho continued. And fear works for a time, but it creates enemies, not allies. It builds resentment, not loyalty. Your empire is vast and powerful, but it is also fragile. One crack in your armor and everything will shatter. He turned back to the queen. Your daughter is not corrupted. She is evolved. She has learned that there are other ways to lead, ways that build trust instead of terror, ways that create willing partners instead of resentful slaves. Queen leaned forward slightly. You speak as if cooperation is strength, but cooperation requires trust, and trust requires vulnerability. In this universe, vulnerability is death. Is it? Ho asked. Or is that just what you have always believed? My species trusted each other and built civilizations. We were vulnerable with our friends and family, and that vulnerability created bonds stronger than any chain. He looked at. Your daughter showed mercy to a helpless creature. You call that weakness. But imagine if that creature was a person from a conquered world. Imagine if instead of fearing they saw kindness, saw compassion, saw a ruler who would protect them instead of exploit them. He took a breath. They would follow her not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They would fight for her not because they feared death, but because they believed in her. That is the kind of loyalty that builds empires which last forever, not through conquest, through connection. Stepped forward angrily. Enough, this is manipulation, pretty words to disguise weakness. Our empire was built on strength and strength alone. Your empire is dying, Ho said quietly. The words fell like stones into water. Ripples of shock spread through the chamber. You conquer, but you do not grow. You defeat enemies, but you do not gain friends. Every world you take becomes a burden to control. Every people you subjugate becomes a threat to manage. You spend more resources holding what you have than building what you could be. He faced the entire council. I am not asking you to become human. I am not asking you to abandon your strength. I am asking you to add something to it. Mercy is not weakness when it comes from power. Kindness is not foolishness when it builds loyalty. Your daughter has learned these things, and they have made her stronger, not weaker. He looked at Queen one final time. You asked me to teach you what I taught her. This is the lesson. True power is not about controlling others. It is about inspiring them. Can inspire your empire in ways that fear never could, if you let her. The chamber was completely silent. Queen sat motionless on her throne. Her face revealed nothing. Then slowly she stood. Remove his chains, she commanded. The guards hesitated. Now. They unlocked his chains. They fell to the floor with a heavy sound. Queen walked down from her throne. She crossed the chamber until she stood directly in front of Ho. Up close, she towered over him. Her power was almost physical. You speak of trust, she said. You speak of vulnerability. These things are dangerous in our world. They are dangerous in any world, Ho replied, but so is living without them. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she did something no ruler had ever done. She bowed her head to him, just slightly, just for a moment, but everyone in the chamber saw it. Teach us, she said quietly. Teach us what you have taught my daughter. The chamber exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted in protest. Priests made signs of horror, his face twisted with fury. But the queen raised her hand, and silence fell again. The human will become an advisor to the crown, she announced. His counsel will be heard. His ideas will be considered. This is my command. She turned and walked back to her throne. This council is dismissed. Stared at Ho with pure hatred. Then he turned and stalked out of the chamber, his loyal followers close behind. Ran to Ho and threw her arms around him. Her skin blazed with golden light. You did it, she whispered. You changed everything. Ho held her close and looked at the departing nobles, at the angry priests, at retreating back. No, he said quietly. We just started. The hard part is coming. And somewhere in the shadows began planning his revenge. 2 years had passed since Ho's speech shook the empire. The great ship was different now. Change had come slowly, like water wearing away at stone, but it had come. Ho was no longer a prisoner. He had quarters near the royal chambers. He wore robes made of soft material that felt like silk against his skin. He sat in council meetings and spoke his mind. People listened. Not everyone agreed with him. Many nobles still hated him. Many priests still called him a corrupting influence. But they could not deny the results. The first test came 6 months after his promotion. A conquered world called Prime had rebelled. The traditional response would be brutal suppression. Send the fleet. Destroy the resistance. Make an example. Queen asked Ho for advice. Send me instead, he said. The court laughed. A human negotiating with rebels, absurd. But the queen agreed. Ho went a Prime with a small delegation. He met with the rebel leaders. He listened to their complaints. He asked what they truly wanted. They wanted respect. They wanted their culture preserved. They wanted to be partners, not slaves. Ho brought these requests back to the queen. She agreed to most of them. The rebellion ended without bloodshed, and Prime became the first world to willingly support the empire. Other worlds noticed. When the empire offered fair terms instead of brutal conquest, some chose to join peacefully. The rate of rebellions dropped. The cost of maintaining control decreased. The empire began to grow stronger, not through fear but through cooperation. Dr. Jin was released from captivity. She became the empire's first human physician, treating both and human patients. Other human prisoners were given better conditions. Some were even freed to serve in various positions. Captain Sung's resistance cell watched all of this with amazement. They had planned raids and rescues for years. Now their enemy was changing from within. This was never our strategy, Sung said to his inner circle. We plan to fight them, not fix them. Does it matter how we win? His second-in-command asked. If the empire changes, if our people are freed, if the war ends, is that not victory? Sung nodded slowly. The human in the court is doing more than we ever could, but I fear for him. Change makes enemies, and he has made powerful ones. He was right to fear. Had not accepted his defeat. He had retreated to the shadows, gathering supporters. Traditionalist nobles who hated the new ways. Military commanders who felt their power slipping away, priests who saw their ancient traditions being questioned. They met in secret chambers, far from the queen's ears. The empire is weakening, told them. Our enemies see our mercy and think us soft. Our conquered worlds see our kindness and think us fools. This path leads to destruction. What do you propose? An old noble asked. Remove the corruption at its source. Kill the human, purify the princess, return the queen to the true path by force if necessary. A coup, the noble breathed. A correction, replied. The empire has survived for 10,000 years through strength. We will not let one human destroy everything our ancestors built. The conspirators made their plans. They gathered their loyal troops. They set a date. The Festival of Ascension, when would be formally presented as heir to the throne. Every noble would be present. Every guard would be focused on ceremony. It would be the perfect moment to strike. But they did not know about the spy. Amongst inner circle was a young officer who had once served under Sung's father. He had been captured and forced to serve but his loyalty had never changed. When he heard the plot, he knew he had to act. He sent a message through the resistance network. It reached Sung within hours. They plan to kill the human and the princess, Sung read aloud. They will strike during the festival. We must warn them. If we warn them, we expose our network, his second-in-command said. We expose our spy. We lose everything we have built. Sung thought for a long moment. For years, the resistance had been his life. Every decision had been about protecting his people, hurting the enemy. But now the enemy was becoming something else. The human in the court was changing everything. If the princess dies, the change dies with her, Sung said. The queen will return to old ways. The war will continue. More of our people will die. He made his choice. Send word to Ho, tell him everything, and prepare our people for action. We may need to fight alongside before this is over. Jin delivered the message personally. She came to Ho's quarters late at night, her face pale with worry. There is a plot, she whispered. Plans to kill you, and during the festival, the resistance knows. They sent me to warn you. Ho's blood went cold. How do they know? They have a spy in inner circle. The information is reliable. I must tell the queen. If you tell her, she will want to know how you learned of this. You will have to reveal the resistance network. Ho understood the weight of that decision. The resistance had operated in secret for years. They had saved lives. They had gathered information. They had given hope to human prisoners across the empire. If he revealed them, all of that might be lost. But if he stayed silent, would die. The queen must know, he said finally. I will protect the resistance as much as I can, but comes first. Jin nodded. She had expected this answer. Sung knows. He said to tell you that he trusts you. He said that if you need fighters, his people will come. Humans fighting alongside, Ho said quietly. Against other, that has never happened. There are a lot of things happening that have never happened before. You started all of this, Ho. You might as well see it through. She left and Ho went to the queen. He found her in her private chambers, studying reports from distant sectors. She looked tired. Leading an empire through change was exhausting work. You should be sleeping, she said without looking up. There is a plot against you, against me. That got her attention. Ho told her everything, the conspiracy, the date, the leaders involved. He did not reveal how he knew, only that his sources were reliable. Queen listened without expression. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. She said finally, I should have dealt with him long ago. He has many supporters, military commanders, nobles, priests. This will not be easy. Easy? The queen laughed softly. It was the first time Ho had ever heard her laugh. Nothing has been easy since you held my daughter in that corridor, but I have not regretted any of it. She stood and faced him directly. You could have stayed silent. You could have let them succeed. With me and gone, you might have escaped in the chaos. I never considered it. Why not? Ho thought about the question. Because she is my daughter, because you have trusted me, because the empire you are building is worth protecting. The queen nodded slowly. Then we will protect it together. Prepare yourself. The Festival of Ascension will be interesting this year. She began calling her loyal guards. And Ho went to warn that danger was coming. The Festival of Ascension was the greatest ceremony in culture. It happened once in a generation, when a royal heir was formally presented to the empire as the future ruler. The great throne room was decorated with lights that floated like stars. Music filled the air, strange harmonies that made the walls themselves vibrate. Every noble house had sent representatives. Every priest had come to offer blessings. Every military commander stood in attendance. The room was filled with thousands of, their glowing skin creating a sea of soft light. Stood at the center of it all. She had grown into a young woman, tall and graceful. Her skin glowed with colors no had ever shown before, shifting between lavender and gold depending on her mood. Her eyes held both depth and human warmth. She was beautiful in a way that made the old nobles uncomfortable. She wore a dress made of woven light. A crown of crystal rested on her head. She looked every inch a princess. Ho stood nearby, wearing the formal robes of a royal advisor. He had never felt more out of place, but had insisted he be close. She wanted her father beside her on the most important day of her life. Queen sat on her throne, watching her daughter with an expression that might have been pride. The ceremony began. Elder priest stepped forward to speak the ancient words. He called upon the spirits of past rulers. He invoked the strength of the empire. He asked to swear loyalty to the way. She swore, but her words were different from the traditional oath. "I swear to protect the empire," she said clearly, "to defend its people, to lead with strength and compassion, to conquer with mercy and rule with wisdom." Murmurs spread through the crowd. These were not the traditional words, looked uncomfortable but continued the ceremony. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Then the lights went out. For a moment there was only darkness, then screams, then the sound of weapons firing. Soldiers had struck. They poured into the throne room from hidden passages. They wore the armor of the royal guard, but their allegiance was to the old ways. They moved with deadly efficiency, cutting down any who stood in their path. The loyal guards fought back, but they were outnumbered. Bodies fell on both sides. The beautiful throne room became a battlefield. Ho grabbed her arm and pulled her toward cover. Around them, chaos reigned. Nobles scrambled for exits. Priests cowered behind pillars. Soldiers clashed in brutal combat. "Stay close to me," Ho said. The queen gasped, "We have to help her." They looked toward the throne. Queen was surrounded by her personal guards, but they were falling one by one. Himself was leading the assault on the royal position. His face was twisted with triumphant rage. "You failed this empire," shouted at the queen. "You let a human corrupt our heir. You betrayed everything we stand for." He raised his weapon and fired. The shot hit the queen in her side. She staggered but did not fall. Mother screamed. She tried to run toward the throne, but Ho held her back. "Wait," he said, "look." Through the main entrance, new soldiers were pouring in. But these were not, they were human. Captain Sung led the charge. His resistance fighters spread through the throne room, attacking forces from behind. They fought with desperate courage, humans and loyal side by side. The tide began to turn. But saw what was happening. He abandoned his assault on the queen and turned toward his real target. He moved through the chaos like a predator, his eyes fixed on the princess. His blade was drawn, slick with blood. Ho stepped in front of. "Move aside, human," said. "You have done enough damage. Let me end this corruption before it destroys us all." "She is not corruption," Ho said. "She is hope." Laughed. "Hope, a human word for human weakness. Our empire does not need hope, it needs strength." "Then you do not understand strength at all." Raised his blade. Ho had no weapon, no armor, no way to defend himself, but he did not move. Whispered behind him, "Please." "Stay behind me," he said without turning. Struck. The blade descended. Ho closed his eyes. But the blow never came. He opened his eyes to find standing in front of him. She had moved faster than he could see. Her arm was raised, and the blade had stopped inches from her face. She was glowing, not just her skin but her entire body. Light poured from her like fire from a star. The light washed over the throne room, and something ancient in the genetics responded. Soldiers on both sides stopped fighting. They staggered, overwhelmed by the radiance. Even stumbled backward, his blade falling from nerveless fingers. "What?" he gasped. "What are you?" Looked at him with eyes that burned gold and purple. "I am something new," she said. Her voice resonated through the chamber. "I am the daughter of two worlds. I am the bridge between what was and what can be, and I am not afraid of you." The light intensified. Tried to raise his blade again, but he could not move. None of the conspirators could move. They were held frozen by a power none of them understood. At that moment, Sung's forces overwhelmed the remaining resistance. Loyal guards secured the conspirators. The fighting ended. Light slowly dimmed. She swayed on her feet and Ho caught her before she could fall. "I did not know I could do that," she whispered. "Neither did I," he admitted. Queen approached them, one hand pressed against her wounded side. Blood seeped between her fingers, but she walked with the same cold dignity she always carried. She looked at her daughter, at the human who held her, at the throne room full of humans who had just fought side by side. "The bond was an accident," the Queen said slowly. "I did not choose it. I did not want it. When I first saw you holding her, I wanted to kill you." Ho said nothing, leaned against him exhausted. "But what you have built from that accident," the Queen continued, "what you have both built, that was choice, that was will, and it has created something I never imagined." She looked around the throne room. "Tonight humans fought for our empire. Tonight my daughter showed a power that combines both species. Tonight everything changed." She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect that no ruler had ever shown a human. "The empire will change," she declared, "and you, Ho, will help us change it, not as an advisor, as family." The nobles who remained looked shocked, but none objected. Tugged at Ho's sleeve. Despite everything, despite the blood and chaos and terror, she smiled. "Does this mean you can stay forever?" Ho knelt down and embraced his daughter, alien and human, impossible and real. "Yeah," he whispered, "I am not going anywhere." The years that followed were not easy. Building bridges never is. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when everything seemed ready to fall apart. But change had started, and it could not be stopped. 10 years later, Ambassador Ho stood on the observation deck of the flagship. Through the great windows, Earth rose into view, blue and green and beautiful. He had not seen his in 15 years. Beside him stood Empress. Queen had abdicated peacefully 2 years before, passing the crown to her daughter. The old queen now spent her days in the gardens she had never had time to enjoy, finally at peace. Had grown into everything Ho had hoped she would be, strong and compassionate, wise and questioning, a leader who inspired loyalty through love instead of fear. Under her rule, the empire had transformed. Conquered worlds became partner nations. Former enemies became allies. Humans were no longer prisoners or subjects but citizens with full rights. The war was over. Peace had come. And now, for the first time, a ruler was visiting Earth, not as a conqueror, as a friend. "Nervous?" Ho asked. Smiled. It was a human smile on an alien face, the most natural thing in the universe. "You taught me that fear means something matters," she said, "and this matters more than anything." She took his hand as the ship descended toward Earth. A human and his alien daughter, father and child, two impossible beings who had changed the galaxy. They went down together, ready to build a future that neither species could have imagined alone. And across the stars, on countless worlds, billions of beings looked up at the sky and hoped. Because hope was not weakness. Hope was the beginning of everything.